In 2022, in the primary elections, Brian Smith ran against Mike Simpson, and there was a slew of people who ran against Brad Little. And so one thing that happened was Brad Little refused to debate any of the people who were running against him. All of the legitimate candidates, Janice McGeehan, all these different people, Edmund Bundy, he just refused to debate them. Mike Simpson issued a statement declining to debate Brian Smith, and he said specifically, like in a written statement, the Republican voters don't need to hear anything more from Brian Smith. So in reading that, like I was stunned. When this happened, every news agency, right, who already have a blind eye, none of them could have a positive thing to say about it. They were like, their editorials read like, we have done this forever, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, like, this is what we do in America, it's part of the debate, you should really rethink this, Brad Little, and yet the outcry was just without teeth. It wasn't like they were demanding it or saying like, like we'll put our foot down, Brad, we need to have debates, Mike. So but what is the reason why they were able to do that? Okay, so when Brian Smith ran in 2014, he got a certain percentage of the vote. He lost, I think he got like 40%. Smith got, Simpson got like 60%. In this election, he got far less. And so so what's the reason why? So between the huge difference, it could be politics, it could be people who don't like Brian Smith, it could be any number of things, but it could also be the fact that in 2014, Brian Smith was broadcast into the living rooms of 1 million people in Idaho on PBS, on Idaho Public Television. And they looked at Mike and they looked at Brian and they heard what he said and they were able to make a determination that he probably wasn't a villain at a minimum. But this time around, that didn't happen. So people had heard all these rumors about Brian. Oh, he's a terrible person, a debt collector, like he does all these super negative things. And so they were deprived of the chance of hearing him defend himself. So the question is, why did this happen? And so it's within reason. The Republican Party can determine the affairs of the Republican Party. This is a Republican primary. This isn't something that's run by the government, So they can make whatever decisions they want within their own party. But the only reason why they were able to make the decision that they did was because, like George Washington had said, this is what has happened. However, combinations or associations of the above description may now and then as the popular ends, they are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines. The Idaho GOP became a potent engine by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men were lifted themselves to power, usurped the reins of government, and destroyed the very engines which lifted them to unjust dominion. So moving forward, do you think that Brad Little is now going to open the doors to Edmund Bundy? 2 years go by. Oh yeah, 2 years ago it was really rough. It was a really cold time. In March. But this year things are different. Things are better. No, we've turned a corner. And so now these people, they're in positions of power. They're not just running for office and saying that they don't want to debate. They're the governor. They're the congressman. They are in these positions of power and they have the luxury of saying that they won't debate people. So unless something seriously changes, I think that what we're looking at is a fulfillment of what George Washington said. The Republican Party has done many good things. The era of Ronald Reagan, the spirit of that time, the principles that are in the platform, you take the Republican Party platform and you read it, they're for the family. They're for traditional family. We're against abortion. We're against all these super negative things. And yet what we've seen is that the power mechanism behind it, the structure of it, has been able to be corrupted to some degree, and it prevents people from being able to have a truly democratic society. So that's my perspective on it. There's also some, so in ancient Egypt, once every 30 years, the pharaoh, after he'd ruled for 30 years, was required to come into a stadium and to run laps around the stadium and demonstrate his strength and his fitness, his ability to continue to serve. It's called Heb Seb. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. In my mind, that's debate, where what we require from our leaders, just like Egyptians required it from their pharaoh, was that you prove to us that you're fit. You stand in front of us. You stand in front of your competitor and you have it out with them and you let us hear, you let us see. We want to see how you're going to lead us. We want to see you defend us. And so I think that is something that we definitely have to demand.
Okay, very good. Does anybody have any questions for him? I think the question was, how do you get him to debate? Well, we have to demand it, I think, somehow. And we have a couple of years before we at least have another chance at Simpson.
Yeah. So along these lines, if you think about it, so at the Republican convention, there was a huge upset. So Dorothy Moon somehow got elected, and everyone in that room who was in a different faction, who was for Simpson, they were shocked, and they walked out in a line with their heads down, like what had happened. Maria Nate gave a speech for secretary, and the camera that recorded her speech shook when she said that she knew what a woman was in the face of all this liberal nonsense. And so that's occurred. So looking at the Republican Party, we have these people who are in positions of leadership. Within Idaho, Ron Nate, Dorothy Moon, Chad Christensen, Kerry Hanks, these people are actually making an effort to move forward. And we have a window of opportunity by virtue of the Constitution, by virtue of the liberty that was placed in there, that we can still contend. We still have time. We still have room. They're not throwing us in jail, directly for the things that we believe. We can still fight, and we might win. And I think that we actually are gaining speed. We're gaining strength. Part of the reason why I've decided to be a journalist is to give voice to that, to give